Matt Groening, to me, this guy is a legend. He created not just one, but two of my favorite TV shows, The Simpsons and Futurama. The Simpsons is straight up my favorite TV show ever. Seasons 2 through 10 are easily the funniest pieces of media I can think of, and Futurama really isn't that far behind. He also made Disenchantment, which is good, but I don't think it's nearly in the same level as his other two shows. As much as I love this guy, one problem he has is his variety isn't the greatest. I mean, the three shows he made are all adult cartoons with basically the same art style. That's why it kinda shocked me when I learned he made the 1999 Christmas special Olive, the Other Reindeer. Okay, to say he made it is a bit misleading because it's based off a children's book by J. Otto Seibold, with Matt acting as the executive producer of the cartoon adaptation. And that adaptation apparently had some of the same writers, even voice actors, as The Simpsons. The book itself is from 1997, but in 1999 it got a film adaptation animated by DNA Productions, which would later go on to animate Jimmy Neutron. The movie would make its premiere on Fox in 1999, apparently alongside Futurama's premiere, which I thought was interesting. If you grew up in the early to mid-2000s and watched Cartoon Network around December, then you've probably seen this movie before, because they showed it there all the time. And yeah, that's how I originally watched it, and despite this, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this movie, which sucks because it's actually pretty good. So yeah, let's get into it. Before I jump into the movie itself, I want to talk about the animation. Like I said, this movie was animated by the Jimmy Neutron guys, so it should come to as no surprise that this movie is CG animated. The backgrounds are in 3D, but all the characters are in 2D. Okay, technically they're 3D too, but they look 2D, so shut up. Well, aside from when the camera wants to be a bit more dynamic at least, I think this blend looks really nice and makes it stand out a lot, and the fact that characters are almost exclusively 2D means the 3D holds up a lot better than other 3D cartoons from the time. That's not to say it looks perfect, just looking at the environments you can tell this was made over 2 decades ago. The characters also have this very unique flat look to them. It does that Peppa Pig thing where the characters' faces have 2 eyes with a nose on the side. And I think it looks good. For the animals, I don't know why the humans are so wrong looking to me, but they are. Their noses look more like weird growths at the side of their faces. You know that one kid from the Fairly Odd Parents, the one with the boil? Yeah, that's what they look like to me. The animation also looks a bit stiff, almost like every character is being tweened. But that's definitely a stylistic thing. I feel like smoother animations would look weird on these characters. I'm probably making a bigger deal out of these faults than they really are because honestly I didn't even think about this stuff when I was watching the movie. Not to mention, this is just a really cool way to translate the original art style into a cartoon. It's so accurate. I mean, look at this. Finally onto the actual movie. It takes place in a city where the protagonist, a small dog named Olive, lives. She's a super nice and optimistic character who really loves Christmas, but is a bit on the gullible side. She unknowingly bought a very obvious knockoff watch and somehow believes she's a reindeer early on in the movie. In this movie, she learns one of Santa's reindeer was injured and Christmas might end up getting cancelled, unless all of the other reindeer come to help. Olive's pet flea, Fido, yes, that's the name, mishears this as Olive, the other reindeer. It makes sense to him because Olive isn't like other dogs. She doesn't chase cars, bury bones, or any other generic dog thing, so logically she must be a reindeer. After some convincing, Olive decides to head off to the North Pole via bus. As you do, at least that's a basic premise. There's obviously a lot more, but I want to talk about some other things first. During this time we meet a few characters, the first and best of which is Martini. He's a sketchy penguin dude who makes a living selling counterfeit Rolex watches. I just really like shady characters because I feel like they're a good source of comedy, and Martini is no different. This guy ends up tagging along with Olive to help her out. And I like that quite a bit because generally in kids' movies a shady character is portrayed as bad and only bad, but Martini? He's obviously deceptive and not the most trusting, but he has plenty of good in him. Despite literally being a penguin, it's not that black and white. I like that. I just now thought of that while recording. Are you impressed with my cleverness? Next is the unnamed postman, voiced by Homer Simpson himself, Dan Castellaneta. I love this guy purely for his voice. I so often hear Homer in his screams or growls. I can't help but giggle every time. Actually, I keep comparing him to Homer, but his voice is a lot closer to the robot devil from Futurama. Just listen.
That's right. The no more Christmas spirit. Did you hear? Santa's not flying. You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry!
Anyway, this guy is supposed to be the villain. The guy hates Christmas and frequently tries to stop Olive from saving it throughout the movie. I love how the reason he hates Christmas is because he hates the increased amount of packages he has to deliver. There is no better reason for a postman to hate the holidays, though the movie later contradicts that, but let's ignore that. Though as much as I love Dan's performance as this character, I have to admit he's still kind of generic and doesn't impact the plot a ton. He really only ever acts as an obstacle. And when I say that, I mean he only ever does things to get in Olive's way, but like 2 minutes later, she's back on track doing whatever she needs to do. He apparently wasn't even in the original book, and yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. But whatever, he's fun, I don't care. There's plenty of other less important characters like the bus driver, who I love because this line made me laugh way too hard.
Yeah, like the time I suddenly had no brakes going down the mountain road.
What did you do?
I don't remember. But I guess it must have turned out all right.
Maybe we should have taken a train.
I also love the fact he supports Olive even if her delusion is clear to him, because a dog who thinks they're a reindeer and wants to save Christmas is adorable. And you know what? He's right. That is adorable. The writing in general is good and surprisingly cynical at points. I mean, one of the main characters is a con man. They even end up in a reindeer bar at one point and get close to being beaten up and thrown off the roof. Who does that to a dog? I mean, they don't, of course, but the fact that it almost happens is just something I didn't expect out of a movie that looks like this. In between when Olive takes the bus and arrives at the bar, not a lot happens. The postman pulls a neocortex and dresses up in drag despite having facial hair, and tricks Olive, causing her to briefly get kidnapped. But like every appearance of this guy, this only acts as a roadblock because she manages to break out thanks to a literal Deus Ex Machina. And they go on their merry way. They eventually arrive at the bar I mentioned earlier, and it's here when Olive realizes that she's probably not actually a reindeer, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying to help. During this part, she manages to convince these people they're being poops, and they manage to get a ride from one of them to Santa's workshop. Unfortunately, they're not allowed in, so Olive breaks in with the help of Martini and manages to convince Santa that she could help. And surprisingly, after a bit of a rough start, she manages to fly and Christmas is no longer cancelled. Santa does his thing, Olive is all over the news, and she becomes a hero. Not before another roadblock by the postman, of course, but don't worry, he lives the rest of his life held hostage at the zoo. I love how she uses the postman's envelopes as wings while flying, they're so cute. This movie wasn't perfect, the plot of Saving Christmas is pretty tired, they never explain how Olive can suddenly fly. In the conflict with Tim, Olive's owner feels pretty forced, with him blowing up on Olive for not being dog-like enough, and Fido mishearing his apology as him saying he's gonna replace her with another dog. There's also a few musical segments in it. They're not bad or anything, this is absolutely a preference thing, but I tend to not like these in movies or TV shows. There's very few I actually like. But if you're like me and don't like this kind of thing, don't worry, there's still a pretty small fraction of this movie. And I kinda like the last one actually, it's surprisingly catchy. Even with the actual flaws in mind, I don't think they really detract to the enjoyment of this movie all that much. It's a funny, charming, and cute Christmas special that I really would recommend. It's definitely not my favorite Christmas special or anything. I don't think anything will ever top the Simpsons episode, Marge Be Not Proud. But it's still a good one, I think I'll make this a yearly tradition of mine. So yeah, that was all of the other reindeer. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to watch this movie officially. I don't think it's on any current streaming services, not even like HBO Max, because you'd think it would be because it aired on Cartoon Network all the time. Actually, this aired on Fox originally, so I guess that would mean Disney owns it now? I'm not sure, I don't know. Thankfully, it's available for free on YouTube through an unofficial re-upload, so if you want to watch it, there you go. Before I end this, I should probably point out that, yeah, this is a pretty different video compared to what I normally do. In case you don't know, I usually cover video games. This is the first time I covered a movie, or a cartoon or anything like that. And this is not going to be a normal thing. I'll probably still do it a couple more times in the future, but yeah, video games still definitely going to be the focus in this channel. So if that's why you like my stuff, don't worry, that's not going anywhere. Anyway, done. So Merry Christmas, everyone.